Yeah.
Now, what happens? We know that there's
They'll
270,
divest.
there's
They'll
270
divest.
days on this, 270 days that they have to sell.
Plus another 90, that
If there's a
they can
deal
take
in
if
the
they need
works.
it. Yeah.
So 1 year. The issue that I have that I want to get your take on is I believe they will divest as well. I believe that that's important, but there's only a small handful of companies that can afford TikTok. It is in my opinion, the most important media company on the planet right now.
Well, a lot of that is going to be in the details. You know, I mean, I started thinking about this over the weekend. I started thinking about like, what does divestiture really mean? In other words, does the algorithm have to come with it in order for divestiture? And is the algorithm all that? I mean, nobody knows whether the algorithm is some secret thing that's amazing that, you know, does something that is truly feeding the engagement here, or whether it's just a buzzworthy thing, right? So if the Chinese government doesn't allow the algorithm to come over and says, basically, that's not part of the divestiture. So sure, have the company, have everything you want, and basically sell it off without the algorithm. One, does the buyer go, I don't need the algorithm to make this work? Two, does it have to be branded a different company, right? Does it have to now be schmick-schmock? And what does that mean?
Oh, that would be exciting. Yes.
Yeah. And so, or does it become part of something else? In other words, does it become, some other company buys it to, like a Meta or a Microsoft buys it, and it just becomes a feature within one of the other platforms? I mean, there's so many ways that you could slice and dice this, that I think all of that is really is going to be really dependent on who buys it and what they do with it. The thing that I can't get my head wrapped around is, if it divests into another company that Americans can subscribe to, is it a separate platform from, I mean, because right now it already is a separate platform from the Chinese version, right? The Chinese version of TikTok has a different name. It's got a different, it's a whole thing, right? And so does it yet become is there a third? In other words, do they just rename and divest TikTok, the whole platform, or do they peel off TikTok and leave TikTok as it is for Canada and Mexico and, all the other countries that sort of have, subscribers and users on it, and then create a new thing with no users on it and say, basically, if you're American, you got to go sign up and start over again. Right?
No, I think you're looking at it way too in-depthly. No, TikTok does not, the name doesn't change, and this is the thing for content creators and people on the platform. Nothing will change. Nobody, if you've never been paying attention to the news, good for you, because your life will continue to go on before, during, and after the divestiture. It's going to be TikTok, and it's going to either go into one of the big 4 or 5, or a combination of the big 4 or 5. And when I say that, that's Apple, Meta, Microsoft, Google, one of those companies, maybe Netflix. I don't think so. Amazon, possibly a group of them, or they're going to set it up where there is a clear barrier, which is much harder to do. Because in some cases, and you've made this point many times on this, you could look at this and say it is not a Chinese-owned company. Because if you look at the investors in it, you're like, oh, well, these are investors, global investors, many American investors. So you'd say, oh, no, it is not a Chinese company. But what seems to be clear, because if you look at the research that's being done, there are certain key content elements that are sensitive Chinese issues that don't get anything into American TikTok. You don't see any controversial Chinese things that come through an American TikTok. Oh, that's curious. You do on Instagram.
Right.
But you don't on TikTok. So that's where the issue is. There's real informational control there. So whether or not you can say, oh, well, there's this clear delineation between American-owned servers and whatever. Yeah, I don't think you can split up the brand or the algorithm or anything like that. It's going to be, okay, so then, we're going to sell this company off. It's going to be sold.
So
everybody's going to go on with their lives.
Right. So then what we're really talking about here is smoke and mirrors.